So, call this workshop into order. I guess we're dealing with the budget, and we'll be turning it over to Brandy.
All right, this is going to be our very first exciting budget workshop of our 1920 budget cycle. We're going to start off as usual with our general fund.
2020, not 1920.
1920.
1920.
Fiscal year 1920.
Oh.
October 1st through September 30th. All right. So,
20 was a long time ago.
my goodness, is this how this is going to go? All right, so as we know, everybody knows our general fund is our least restricted funds. We can use it for all of our government functions. It funds our constitutional officers. It supports other funds that may have deficits, not meeting fund balance. Anything we use out of here, although it's least restricted funding, it must always still have a public purpose. We review that several times, my office and then the clerk's office as well, to make sure that every transaction in our general fund, and every other fund for that matter, has a public purpose. Our challenge that we face is that we must protect this general fund because it does support every other fund, and as we're growing, the revenue that we have to live within is not necessarily what we would like it to be sometimes, and we have to make some decisions between what are must-haves, what we really need to do in order to continue to improve our county versus what we would like to have. So our challenge is just to keep our fiscal discipline, not rely on any cash forward for our recurring expenses, and to keep that fund balance safe. And as you know, as our costs go up, our fund balance requirement also goes up with it. And so it's just a balancing act pretty much every year to make sure we have enough and we're safe. This is our safety net, and then that we can fund what we need to fund. And our fund balance, just a reminder, what it is 3 months worth of your annual expenses. So you're going the wrong way. Okay. So for our general fund, our current fiscal year budget, for some comparison, is $26.2 million, and that sounds like a lot, but we know we have some transfers in there, we have our reserves in there, we have our double counting effect, which we've talked about. So when we back all those things out, our real operating expense for the BOCC departments is about $9.1 million. And what we spend this money on is our employee salaries and wages. We have professional services operating. This is any general government purpose. With that public purpose with it is what we use our general fund. This is where our ad valorem goes, our state revenue sharing, taxes, licenses. We have some assessments, some intergovernmental revenues. So this is really our most comprehensive bucket of money, if you will, to be used for what government needs to use it for.
Public Works, Parks Department.
Not Public Works. Not Public Works.
Road Department.
The Road Department we're going to get to. It's separate. So on just for round numbers, on a $9 million budget, we need roughly $3 million in fund balance in our general fund. Next one. So right now at the 2017-2018 and fiscal year end, our fund balance was $3.4 million. So our policy requires at 25% that we would have $2.7 million, and then at the top range it's 33%. And this $3.4 million is not just general fund, it's a combination of our general fund, our revenue stabilization fund, and then our clerk's office, property appraiser, and tax collector. Their fund balances are also rolled up in this $3.4 million. The goal being that our policy is 2.7, which is exactly where we are in the general fund, is that we would bump up our true general fund, not including those constitutional officers, not including the revenue stabilization fund, so that we had true general fund dollars at $3.4 million.
Did you subtract for the deficit in the Sheriff's Department in their general fund?
This is not looking at the Sheriff's Department in any way right yet. We're going to get there.
Account buddies and The other constitutionals.
Mr. Buddy and the sheriff are in different funds, totally different. So their fund balance stays in their fund. It's just the clerk, property appraiser, and tax collector that are under the umbrella of the general fund. So theirs is separated by an accounting maneuver with an actual different sub-fund, but it still rolls up in the financial statements as part of the general fund in $3.4 million.
They still have a fine and forfeiture fund for the sheriff's department?
Now, and what we're doing to help this fund balance also is the clerk's office has done a really good job at diversifying where our cash is and the interest rate that we earn for money that's parked, and they have several different investment pools, and they have money in Ameris, Prime Meridian, and so they're basically shopping interest rates in order to make that money that's sitting there actually do some work for us. And I think it's to the tune of about $130,000 a year, Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be higher this year.
Hopefully it'll be higher. But that's going into our general fund, a portion, and then into our revenue stabilization fund, and that helps us build that fund balance. So go to the next one. Every year, the basis of our budget is what we planned last year. We run out a 5-year forecast to try to see where we're going down the road in the future. So we start with that forecast that we had last year. And so we update that throughout the year. I have the actuals updated through the end of February and just monitor things at this point of the year to see if anything is coming out differently than what we predicted, if there's any departments that have any issues maybe with overspending. But for the most part, the majority of our expenses in our general fund departments are our personnel, and we can budget those really good. We know what those costs are going to be, barring any changes that are unforeseen in the year. I did not see any departments that are in danger of wildly overspending their budget. So at this point in the year, we're looking pretty good. And we will be having mid-year reviews with the departments starting the 15th or the 17th of April. So we'll talk about where we are in the current year midway through, and we'll talk about what their needs are and what we see happening maybe different for next year. All of our state and local revenues are looking strong, looking good, and the overall condition of our economy right now is helping that. So we always have to be wary of the fact that we're a little microcosm of what may be going on in the larger world. So we watch these carefully for any fluctuations, but we have to be sensitive to the overall federal economic situation, state economic situation, how it can impact us locally, because a lot of our state revenue sharing and things like that, it's a big hole if some of that was to go away. The PST elimination, we do not have enough time on the books to really look at what that effect is going to be. It just took effect on January 1st, and there's a delay because it's collected by the utility provider in January, and then it's remitted to us in February. So depending on the timing of when actually it's remitted, we don't have enough data in our February numbers yet to really look at that and see and give a really accurate projection of where we're going to end the year in our PST revenue.
You said PST elimination?
The exemption. We eliminated the 500 kilowatt exemption.
That's
So
an elimination.
yes.
Okay.
So we
You
haven't
just have 1 month's worth of
1
that.
month, and it may not be a full month because of the timing of when those utility providers are remitting it. Some of them are better than others, let's just say that. And that delay affects some of our other revenues as well with the state revenue sharing. Some of them are pretty, you get them on the 1st and they post them, but there is a delay factor in a lot of our other revenues too. So we monitor, we can look and see how many payments, if we're supposed to get 12 payments of this particular revenue, have we received 4, and then we can kind of project out what the next 8 are. So we're just doing a lot of monitoring right now where we're going.
How's the CST doing?
Poorly.
We need to look at getting rid of that.
Poorly.
Substitute it.
And it's poorly for everybody, not just us.
Legislature's trying to get rid of it again, right?
Mhm.
But not replace it.
Mhm. You got to give me the clicker.
Oh, are you
Or you got. Okay, so for our current assumptions for our 1920 budget, we we would like to give a COLA. Last year we did not do a COLA across the board. We just hit those employees that were $30,000 or less and made some adjustments there. We are proposing to include the CHP increase for health insurance, that will be absorbed by the county on behalf of the employees. At this point, we do not know what our FRS mandated increase is going to be, but that's one of the things that we'll have to plan for. We can't get around it. We're talking with operations, we really would like to add on a GIS position under the Planning and Zoning Department, and that will serve more than just the planning and zoning, the building, the E911, road and bridge. If we could have a centralized GIS, and think it's been talked about for a very long time, and it's something that we really, really need. Potentially we might add on a economic development coordinator or some type of position, or maybe not necessarily an employee. We're still investigating and looking into those things. But when we do this, GIS is a position we have at one time I think had under the board, but not for a while. So Debbie reaches out to other counties and looks and does investigation and research, what do you pay, what does your position do. We get all that information so we can make the best decision that we can, since this is kind of going to be new for us. So
did you take the money back that you give the property appraisers now for that service?
We'll be taking the E911 back.
What about don't you pay the property appraiser?
That's something we need to discuss with the property appraiser.
That's,
yeah, it's just under $14,000 a year. So
it's not like you can eliminate a position or something.
Right. We anticipate that the constitutional officers will also ask for an increase this year, so that they generally follow what we do, so they can apply a COLA and absorb the CHP increase for their employees as well. And we want to continue transferring to that revenue stabilization fund so we can protect ourselves from any fluctuations that we can't see on the horizon right now that may come up at some other time. Oh, you look like you had something to say.
I was going to, but not.
Okay. So right now we're having some growing pains because everybody knows we're growing, we're building, more people are moving, but the revenue doesn't always follow right behind that, and so you have departments that are just at capacity for what we can produce. And so it's the challenge is to control our expenses, to stay within our available revenue, and to continue to provide the level of service to our citizens that we want to give them. And each year our personnel expenses are going to increase, our operating expenses, utilities are going up. So every year we have to be able to fund that with that available revenue without relying on that cash, and with living within our means. And it is challenging sometimes, because if you talk to any single county staff person, we're all wide open right now. So to try to bring on 2 additional full-time positions and live within our means, make sure the constitutional officers have everything, it's quite a balancing act to manage. So, and we also don't want to park any taxpayer money. We had a surplus 2 years ago. We don't want to get there. We just want to stay in the sweet spot, and it's tricky. So the next one, this is just a historical look at what our millage rate has been for the last 5 years. And we can go back further, but when you start talking about what the millage rate was 10 years ago, your information is a little dated, and it doesn't reflect what's going on more current in the world right now. And then there is also one for historical values. Millage rate's gone down, property values have gone up. It is very early to speculate what that increase is going to be for property values, but I do expect that we will see an increase. We lost a little bit of value with Hurricane Michael, but not near as much to impact us as what we brought on for new homes.
In fact, talking to the property appraiser, he thinks it'll be between a 4 and a 6% increase in property values.
You could change the scale on your grouse and make it look even better.
All right. Go to the next one. And moving right on into our sheriff's fund, because it's such a huge part of the county overall budget. Their current fiscal year budget is $11.7 million plus $450,000 in cash we budgeted for non-recurring, and that was planned. That was planned based on them reaching fund balance. They ended the year with 2.5, so they were not quite there, but close enough that we can use that money to fund some of their vehicles, as well as we're working on the work camp improvements. That is spending the rest of impact fees, some of the sheriff's cash, and a combination of 1 cent
How
sales tax.
has their ICE count been going, Jan? Good? Up where y'all want it? Better? Good. That's the key thing with y'all.
They're where they are to hit the 3 million, 3.2 million.
Good for Jared.
Yes, they are. They're trucking along exactly where we thought, and so that's good there. And just, I want to reiterate that this 450,000 cash is non-recurring, so it's like how we talked about in the general fund. We don't want to rely on cash forward for our recurring expenses. We're not doing that in the sheriff's fund. We're intentionally burning up a little bit to ease the burden on our 1 cent sales tax fund while we can.
Now, are they at the point now where, and they're completely self-sustaining, right, with the excess ICE revenue at this point? Or are you
Well,
still transferring money from general fund?
we're going to get there because we've fixed the fund balance problem, but we have not fixed the overall recurring funding problem yet. So there's two pieces. I think you're jumping ahead of me here, but we'll get, let's see.
How short, Randy? 800.
Yeah, I'd say that's correct. Go to,
You're talking about the implicit deficit between the operating and the housing?
so, okay, go to the next slide. We're going to continue to hold that $1.8 million jail bed revenue estimate, and that's what we're going to continue to budget and assume that we're going to put that 1.2 to fund balance each year. So at the end of the current year, I'm estimating their fund balance to be at about $2.75 million, which is right where they need to be. Go to the next slide. But this is where it gets interesting. So they started the current year off with 2.5. We know they're going to add that surplus of 1.2. We're intentionally spending that 450,000, and we used $500,000 of cash in order to fund some recurring because we don't have a way to fill that hole. And so even though they're bringing in an extra $1.2 million, it's only going to increase their fund balance by about $250,000.
Now, there were two holes at one time. One was the gap between what it actually cost to house the prisoners and what they were bringing in, and that's been kind of kicked down the road, I think. As long as things stay status quo, we're really fine with that.
That's
Right.
about a $250,000 gap based on the current year. I don't know what, Jan has given me her estimated increase for 1920, but it was not broken down yet, so we're closing that hole.
Yeah, that's closed down tremendously.
Okay, now we have, then we have our standard allocation we give the fine and forfeiture fund, and how much general fund subsidizes that to get them where they need to be?
Well,
What is that number roughly?
they're not there, but we're already transferring every bit of ad valorem that we collect. So for 1920, I'm proposing $9.5 million in general fund revenue. That's going to be about exactly what our ad valorem is, roughly. So that's where that's the hole. That's the problem. We fix fund balance as long as the ICE revenue continues to stay what it is, but when or if that goes away, and at some point we're going to have to address that there has got to be either a dedicated stream of revenue for the sheriff's department or somehow, because we're continuing to use cash here, and I wouldn't say it's insignificant. It's not significant, but we're doing it, and we shouldn't be doing it.
If we knew that they were going to keep ICE prisoners, and we knew what that number of prisoners were going to be, we wouldn't have this discussion, right? Then we could budget for it.
But then we would still be using that ICE revenue to supplement our local corrections.
If it was going to go forever.
Right, if it was going to go forever and was guaranteed, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
We could just make that conscious decision to supplement our local operations and have a great day.
But if ICE went away today, we've narrowed it down to about a $250,000.
It's probably going to be probably 150 or so this year.
So that's really affecting. Used to be 3 million.
We keep chewing that down every year.
We brought it way on down, so we're a lot better off.
And 150 is not scary.
It's not scary.
With reserve.
And we were bad before.
Buddy's got a question.
Yeah, I have a question. I know we've talked about this in the past, that the ICE money could be just taken completely away from working and taken away from the revenue stream. Have we gotten there yet?
That's what we've been working on. That's exactly what we've been working on. And we're down now to about $250,000, $150,000.
And that money, now the excess ICE revenue is going to be used for equipment, stuff like that,
Yes,
instead
That's what
of
we're
paying to
actually-
operate the sheriff's
That's right,
department.
we're actually
right?
putting it towards capital where it should have went.
one-time costs, so non-recurring expenses
I have a
only.
big heartache with 150. If they had to cut 150 to $200,000, they could do it. I mean, if they had to, if the world came to an end, they could do
No
it.
doubt about it, no doubt about it.
Or we could all do it and suck it up. That's not the end of the world.
Ice went away and we had to cut it.
Yeah, we could
That's
get,
a lot better than $3 million.
we could put our heads
Yes.
together, and we could figure out a way to make that happen. But $3 million is a little different.
Yes, yes, so we still need to keep our eye on this on the sheriff's fund. We've definitely improved, but we're not to where we want to be quite yet, so.
But much better than they were.
Much better than we were, and working with Jan and Sheriff has been wonderful, just wonderful.
Much easier.
All right, so, and now we're going to talk about our road fund a little bit. When we took over the road fund for the current fiscal year, we knew that after we got some time under our belt that there may be some operational changes that we may want to make for efficiencies, and so we've looked, David and I have looked at the mid-year position on the road fund, and we're in good shape. We I don't want to say overestimated our personnel, but we knew those changes may happen, so we planned for it with a healthy personnel budget. So we're going to bring on a third maintenance crew, and that'll consist of a crew leader, a laborer, and a driver. And that's going to happen. I think their applications have already been submitted and closed, so that process is going on right
Graders
now.
we got in service now.
Got
Route-
three graders and a spare, but what this,
Got one route grader out, right? We used to have 4 route graders and a spare. Now we got 3.
3 and a spare.
Is there any thought to adding back that 4th
No,
route
not
grader?
now, because realize we're paving roads.
Yeah.
And we're also we're a lot smarter than what we were 6 months ago.
No offense, Ned.
We're a hell of a lot smarter than what we were, because now we're narrowing down the focus in the areas that our graders are going, and we're paving roads.
We don't have a corporate mandate to follow, is what he's trying to say.
But what this crew is going to be doing is it is primarily ditch maintenance is what it'll be. It'll be stormwater, storm drainage, whatever you want to call it. And what they'll be doing is they'll be dedicated to going in and opening up the ditches, keeping them maintained, because that's one of the problems that we're having here in the county is we have never properly maintained our ditches, which affects our roads, affects property owners, all that stuff. They'll be cutting back the ditches, but then also excavating the ditches where need be.
We got a great all? It's a great all crew, basically?
Well, we have
Got a
excavator.
grade all it'll dig in, it's got a 60-inch rotary cutter head, and they can mow and dig at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping for a faster recovery time after we have major storm events. Now, I believe that'll help, and it helps our county rating system.
Is this that wheeled excavator, or is it actually a great all?
Wheeled
It's
excavator.
wheeled
It's a lot better than a great all. A lot better.
And
and-
you got something to blow the
Oh,
culverts out of?
that works in concert with
Vac
our.
truck.
Vac
our,
truck?
vac
Yep.
truck, and
That
they
thing's
work in
amazing.
concert together. And we're gonna have we'll have a premier, ditching, but this crew realized by the time they get through the county, from working from the coast back up, they'll need to turn around and do the same thing, and it'll be a constant rotation.
Be amazed what's in them culverts.
So anyway, we've already started in Panacea a little bit, done some in Panacea, has made a big difference.
Yeah.
But yet, this crew hasn't started. We've done some test areas, and so anyway, we know what we're gonna do, we know how to execute it now, so now we said, okay, now we can execute it, and here's how we'll do it. Then now we're putting the people to it.
And FEMA always wants to see your records of maintaining ditches,
Yes,
too.
and that is something that we've done, is we're a lot better than what we used to be. We now have a new software system, and we have folks out in the field that take pictures, what roads they are, all that stuff. We're a lot smarter than what we
GIS would help with that, too, right?
GIS will
Yes,
be
it
a
would.
big part of that, yes.
FEMA always, like I said, they want, show me when the last
Big
time
part
you
of that.
cleaned
And that's the reason, that's one of the reasons we're doing it. We're a lot smarter than what we were, and we're gonna continue to be that. And, not only will the GIS help us in Road and Bridge, but it'll help Summer, to have correct zoning maps. And also, it'll help our fire and EMS folks. They need it really bad. So all together, and we're compiling all this information. We did the same thing there. We said, okay, what is it going to take? We've already got the program laid out. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to buy. Now we're going to lay the people to
That's
it.
a good economic development tool, too.
That is very good economic.
Have you got the stuff from the Regional Planning Council on the comp plan yet?
I was gonna say, they're wrapping it up, actually. I think their final product is due by June.
That'll be a good start
So,
for
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
That was free.
So anyway,
So anyway,
all right.
like David said, we're gathering a lot of data, trying to make ourselves smarter, get our information that we use to manage our business all right and tight, and so we can be smarter and do things better in the future. Go to the next one.
Wait, back up. It says fuel tank replacement.
Yeah, the fuel tank, we had scheduled that to be
Fuel
replaced.
pump.
The fuel pumps upgraded this year.
Collect the tank charge when you're billing the departments?
Yes, we do.
And that's gonna pay for that, right?
Yes, it is its own little separate cup.
Correct. We can adjust that wherever you want to, actually. If it needs to be bumped up, nobody knows the difference.
Now go to the next
I
one.
mean, it's interdepartment revenue. It's charged to use the fuel tanks at Trash Lane.
Well, it's also we charge the highway patrol,
Yeah.
uh,
Forest Service.
Senior
FWC.
citizens,
You know, say,
everybody
if
that,
we bill them, say they get, I don't know, 10 gallons of fuel, we add on, what, 5 cents a gallon?
I forgot what it's
That's to
something like
pay
it
to
is.
maintain the tanks, that they get the convenience of using them. And that's repainted them, upgraded them, everything. That's been around
they
for
are,
many, many years.
they're old. They're pretty outdated every time they have to be worked on. We
They
have
when I
a
was there.
difficult time,
You
so,
have to pump it up there to the top and a little gas bowl and it comes down.
yeah, so,
Just kidding.
they definitely are due for it, but they can hang on one more year if need be, so.
Hank cranking.
So in our road fund, and we're just talking our operating here, our fund balance is $330,000 at the end of 17-18. Our goal is 534, so we're a little low there, but I anticipate that we're going to put some money to fund balance this year. Our revenue is also strong in our road fund. We've talked about these taxes being very flat, and that's a good and a bad thing because they don't go up that much, but they don't go down that much either, so it's kind of, you are
The other umbrella
off the rails
things
here.
under Public Works, like solid waste is run as an enterprise, right?
Correct,
Water and wastewater.
correct.
So the road
This
gas
is
tax,
just the road fund.
that's mostly gas tax money, right?
Yes,
Very little ad valorem.
no ad
ad
valorem,
valorem.
no ad
Well, it's
valorem.
being run as an enterprise.
That's actually paying us, we charge it to help run it.
Right,
Yes,
the-
administrative
Right,
costs,
administrative cost.
cost allocation.
Right.
yes.
So that's basically being run as an enterprise fund
It's a
too.
business, that's right, yes. We try to run all these as businesses.
Oh, I think I already mentioned that part. All
Now,
right.
just so that you understand, and this is one of the things I want to talk about real quick, was talking about reserves and the general fund, et cetera, is our previous storm we had, Michael, which we got brushed, but the cleanup cost of that was,
$1.7 million.
we just got brushed. DOT had not stepped in, which they may not do the next storm.
Did the debris contract.
That's what we would be on the hook for as far as paying that. Now, we would get reimbursed for that, but we would have to carry that probably for 2 years, something along those lines.
Reimbursed all of it.
What's that?
You might still be,
That's right, that's right.
May have to pay 12.5.
May have to pay 12.5%, but at the end of the day, the biggest thing is the carry until you get repaid. So just understand.
Drop in the bucket compared to what our
Oh,
numbers to the west.
big time
Yes,
drop.
it's, I can't even
Have y'all
imagine.
applied to get us, physically constrained county to get our share reduced
For what?
for
No,
our 12.5%?
they paid 100%.
Not just for debris pickup.
For all the other,
Everything.
we apply for it, yes.
You did, okay. One county has gotten it so far, was the update we
Well,
got.
yeah, I'd have to have the net here to explain all that, so I'll leave that.
One of her former employees gave us the presentation, Melissa, she's the head of that for the state now.
Moving on to our fire fund. Our 16-17 year end was 90,000 in fund balance. So in 17-18 we brought that up by 84,000, so we're at 174. Our goal in this fund is $428,000, and I estimate that it's going to increase by about $100,000 at the end of this fiscal year. So this fund is correcting itself very slowly. So we are going to propose an increase in the fire assessment rates by CPI of 3%, and what that will look like is on the next slide.
Now, we had talked about that at one
We had
time.
talked about it when we made the last, so the current rates are $99 per residential dwelling unit. We're proposing 102.
I thought we had suggested to put it in there automatically to do the CPI.
It is automatic that we can initiate it, we're just telling you about it now.
But I mean, do we have to come back every year and approve
We
the
have to
CPI?
approve that rate resolution every year, a preliminary and a final. So
But
it's
it automatically is going to click up the CPI every year, right?
not
Well,
written
I
that
mean,
way.
you guys, they're gonna incorporate it,
Right.
you guys still have to vote on it.
So that's the direction of the board, was follow the CPI every year. And we could vote next meeting to reduce it down to $10 if we wanted to.
Right. So that's why we're just letting you know, this is going to be our proposal, and what this does, go to the next slide. This is how that revenue shakes out. So it's, the biggest impact is in your residential. So it's going to be a $3 increase per residential dwelling unit. That brings us about an additional $40,000.
This doesn't even account for new growth, does it?
Does not account for the new growth. This is just the assessment. And I talked to Brad, and I think we're looking at about 280 houses, he believes. So we'll have the additional revenue from that. And then it's minimal in your commercial and then in your vacant land, but just about $48,000 from the CPI. And so that brings us to a total revenue of just under $1.7 million. And if you think about that, we're running a fire department with $1.7 million, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And they have, I believe, 12 staff on all the time. I don't want to talk about Louis, but if you think about the value our citizens are getting for fire protection services, consider the Waste Pro assessment. It's $196, and you're getting trash picked up once a week. Here you're getting 24/7 fire protection for $102 a year.
Now,
So
in the cost allocation, since we have fire rescue, and you obviously can't use MSBU for ambulance,
correct.
what percentage of fire rescue do you say is fire?
We have, it's totally broken out
They have
separate.
total, but even though the
Totals.
same person may be doing,
Correct.
Two
There
jobs.
is, Louis does time diaries on these guys, and so it allows us to see if they're on a 24-hour shift, how many hours that they're working on MSBU. We did this in order to come up with some science, and I believe the current allocation is 62% to EMS and 38% to fire. So we always want to be conservative because our EMS is in our general fund. Like we said, we can spend it on anything as long as it's public purpose, but our MSBU is restricted to only MSBU activities, only fire activities, so we're always going to be conservative. So it could possibly be 42%. We went 38. So it's, again, that balance of making sure you're using the funds appropriately, but that you're making sure each fund is carrying their weight, paying their fair share kind of thing.
And just to give them an idea, that increase is going to cover, when we do 2% increase and then CHP.
You're probably talking about $100,000, if not more.
So that's the reason we're going to have some sort of ratcheting up.
just in fire or fire rescue?
Fire rescue, we no longer have fire.
I understand.
That would be this share.
What would hit the MSBU
That's right.
fund?
What would hit
The
them?
Yes.
increase in the CHP that would hit the MSBU fund, you think it's going to be $100,000, but it's only going to go up $47,000.
Correct, from the CPI adjustment.
And the
So we
rest of
bring
that is
our
from the
growth
growth.
in, and that includes FRS as well, because these are special risk employees, and I believe it's about 44% is their FRS rate. So FRS, CHP, and the COLA, there's a pretty large impact in this fund.
So we use the gross and the CH and the CPI.
To get us where we're trying to go.
Right.
Next one. All right, our 1-cent sales tax fund is looking good. We're seeing a nice increase in that. So anticipate about $2.7 million in revenue in 1920. So if we spend all the cash we have on hand and we finish all of our projects in the current year, that would be what we would need to live on each year, assuming that it was going to increase a little bit, 2 or 3% each year based on just the overall economy. So about $615,000 for our facilities, $270,000 for parks, $1.2 million for roads, and $590,000 for public safety. And that public safety fund is where we were talking about using our cash in the sheriff's fund to kind of relieve a little bit there. They're buying some vehicles out of their fund. We had in our 1 cent 10-year projection, we had a dollar amount each year, and so a portion's coming from there, a portion's coming from the sheriff's fund, and so that's the relief we're talking about, because fire truck, we need a fire truck as well, and we've bought those before, and they are not inexpensive, so
Are they gonna use their
Ambulances.
leftover
ambulances,
law enforcement MSBU or corrections MSBU to pay for that
yep, they sure are.
camp, work camp?
A matter of fact,
Mhm.
it's down pretty low.
Good job, Camp.
So that's where we would be if we had to live on just our revenue. It would be $2.7 million. So our significant change for 1920 is just going to be our fire station is complete, and so it's just debt service in that 1 cent sales tax facilities fund of $155,000 a year. We do have another potential large change that we didn't plan for, and that's the purchase of the Wind Lake Road property, $400,000 plus due diligence. That was unplanned when we approved the 18-19 budget, so that's going to impact the 1 cent sales tax fund. But we have the cash available to do it, and it's appropriate. That's exactly what it's for. It's expanding our roadways and making things better for our citizens. So that's where it should come from, and we have the capacity to do it. But it is something that we planned for back in September.
And we'll get a lot of that money back, by the way.
I hear
All
that.
of it.
I hear that, and that's great. But it's just like the storm. We still have to carry that.
We gotta carry
We
it.
have to put the
For
cash
other
out
benefits,
front.
we'll get,
How are we gonna get the money back?
Sell it.
Sell property we don't need?
it will now be an intersection.
That'll be a major intersection.
I'm gonna kick into developer mode.
It'll probably
Lord help us.
more than what we paid for, I
I haven't
guarantee
seen
you.
nothing yet.
It probably, I'm not gonna, I mean, it'll cover a significant portion of the construction too, I think,
We haven't closed
personally.
on that yet, though, have we?
Huh? No,
Haven't closed on that
no,
yet.
No.
we're still discussing.
Yes, the public hearing is actually at the 4:15 board meeting for the purchase and sale agreement, so. All right, in our sewer fund, we're hooking people on in Magnolia Gardens and Wakulla Gardens, and I'm looking at about $120,000 in monthly sewer fee, residential sewer fee collection revenue, so that's looking good. Our construction of our new plant is almost complete. It's the sewer plant that was never to be finished, apparently, but it's almost there, and when we get that finished, we'll continue working with the water management district to keep pushing that grant funding, keep hooking more people up.
Soon as
More
it's
people
finished.
hook up, more people, more revenue.
So, I mean, it's almost been completed forever, so,
It's actually functioning now, and we got, only thing, the reason we're not able to send water down right now unless something's changed today is we're waiting on some DO monitors, or not DO, turbidity meters, and that, as soon as they come in, we're ready to go. The filters are operational,
Ready
all
to
those
go.
things.
Is it
Ready to go
processing
down to
sewage?
oh yeah,
to
oh yeah.
this- So then it'll meet the standard to go to
Yeah, and
golf
that's what
course.
we gotta have the turbidity meters in to make sure that it is.
Right now, but you don't have the equipment in place for DEP standard.
For constant monitoring.
Right.
I got you. So right now it's being Sprayfield application.
So right now, it's producing, the plant is producing what it's supposed to
And
do.
about the time that plant's done, we need to start planning for another expansion.
That is already in the works, sir.
When do you think you'll start pumping to the golf course?
That's what we were just talking about, as soon as those turbidity meters come
I
in.
mean, do you have a date?
Well, I know, but when the turbidity meters coming in, DEP will be a quick one.
3 months?
Months on turbidity meters, you already ordered them, right? Or,
I ordered them, but I still have to do their part with the letter, get it all approved, so operating procedures.
so it'll be a little bit, it's gonna be into the summer.
so 3 more months.
So, 3 more months.
Before it goes to the
Well,
golf
but the good thing is our plant's operating. We can't, it's doing what it's supposed to do. We just can't send it down the road.
We've got enough
yet.
spray field for what we need right
Yeah,
now.
and we've got the other plant, the old plant is offline right now. Because it's getting ready, you're going to be seeing that hopefully in May. Well, it sounds like the 1st of May we'll be getting the grant from our first Restore Act dollars. That's flying through right now. We'll get that in May, and that'll do the retrofit, which will fix the old plant. But then we've got dollars in the Restore Act Pot 3 to kick in for a wastewater study and design for the final expansion.
We need spray field property.
And we're working on that too. So yes, that is, we got
Number
we
one.
got more properties and we got more priorities than we have money.
I mean, that's the next big
Yeah.
thing I can see coming down the line is we got to get spray field.
Yeah, we're working on a couple ideas.
Well, and we also got the DEP grant, $500,000 for the wastewater feasibility analysis, and that might identify additional grant funding opportunities and different things, different methods we can use to increase revenue. So that will actually be coming back, I think, the second meeting in May for you guys to review the award and move forward with that. So.
And DOT has also said they would allow us to water 98. But you know, that's
Does anybody do deep well injection anymore?
no, not right now.
Had to ask.
Don't go down that road.
You do wanna pick a fight, don't you?
Yeah, you're trying to pick a fight.
So, where are you looking for a spray field? Just looking over Sock Choppy area, outside the...
Now, we'd like to
Officer?
try to keep it along the corridor where we have our existing spray line that goes up to the golf course and expand it on up, because part of what we're going to be doing as well is we're being reworking lift station 76. Everybody knows it's the Jerry Moore lift station. Reworking that and laying a new line, because back in 2010 the board voted to lay an 8-inch line versus a 10-inch line. That 8-inch is already out of service.
That was a big question we had at Cherie's presentation, was why that lift station cost so much.
That's the reason why you're having to...
Transmission lines.
That 8-inch line should have never been laid, and it was a waste of money.
Should have went down Jack Crum Road, but
Well,
that's a different story.
That's a different story. But here's the thing, is we're gonna take that and use that 8-inch line as a reuse line. Get it flushed out, reuse it as a reuse line, so that would expand. One is going up 98, we can expand our spray area along the side of the road. That's one of the cheapest ways we can do it, but also, if we wanted to expand it into the future, we could expand it into Wakulla Gardens. But the problem is your capital outlay versus your hookups for your reuse system. Boy, that's a tough one to make it economically feasible. So we're looking at some
You mean
possibilities.
for residential reuse?
Residential reuse is
no.
tough. Now there's a couple of folks in there that have some agricultural operations, some landscaping companies. Yeah, we could give them, we could do that, as well as we're going to spray the rec park, and we could spray the high school there. But realize those are small in comparison to the overall surge of water that we're going to need to put out.
Jack Crum.
Well, not Jack Crum, but we'll do it along 98. The problem is that'll eliminate your wildflower program, and because we'll have to mow it. So,
There's a ag land from Jack Crum all the way to 98.
right.
Big piece of land.
So that's why that cost was high.
That's what I thought, but Cherie didn't.
Most of that's in Sand Hill, though. And this would work better if you put it out in the flatwoods.
I mean, it's treated to AWT standards. I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
the nitrogen
It's- yeah,
level
it's-
is probably very low.
It's very low. Yeah, in fact, it's in my book. I think it's too low for it to really help anything. But that's just.
Well, you're just trying to get rid of it.
Yeah. All right. Moving right along.
Moving right along. And I apologize, the header on this slide should say the solid waste fund. But right now, the clerk's office is looking at auditing some information between Waste Pro and the property appraiser. And so we don't have any recommendations at this time about the assessment rate. The solid waste fund is in good shape. It's just there's some variances between what we have on the books as far as where residential cans are, and as opposed to what Waste Pro is saying that they're servicing. And so until the clerk's office finishes their audit and determines what the next step is, we're kind of neutral on our solid waste fund at this time.
They still get paid though, even if nobody lives there. If there's a house, they pay that assessment, right? Even if they didn't never pick the garbage.
The problem is what, and I'm picking these numbers, so, is Waste Pro saying we're servicing 14,000 residential houses. But we're saying that we have 13,000 on the books that you can service, and they're saying you owe us that balance of that 1,000. So we're reconciling, that's what Greg is doing, is going through each and every residential property and seeing what they have, Waste Pro has, and what it should be.
Waste Pro gave you their records, huh?
I had to
$100,000.
talk them into it, but when you withhold their monthly fees, they tend to respond.
You withhold monthly fees, they have a tendency to.
How do we add all this new construction, these new homes going on? How do we add that to how they get paid? Does that come on? I mean,
Building
we have an
department.
annual
It's a
contract
process through the building department and the clerk's office, getting records of the COs that are being issued and stuff like that.
It's true
So
to,
it is,
But there's also where we think, and Greg can get up and talk about it more, and because he's doing it, but where he, been talking to him the other day, where he thinks part of the problem is whenever you have somebody that currently this person owns a house and they have a Waste Pro account, they sell the house and it goes over to Joe Smith. They're leaving the original account open and they're adding another account versus taking that account off the books. They're adding another account, so their accounts are showing 14,000. So that's where he thinks the majority of the problems are.
how often, Greg, is it trued up with the new construction?
Yeah, that's
Once
that
a
was
year,
my question.
twice a year?
No, that's
Quarterly.
Quarterly.
Although we have suspended that until this audit's complete.
So they're making more money every time these new homes come on.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So I'd be hard pressed to consider an increase.
Well, we just put the CPI there because it's there, but it's a possibility, but right now, we're
holding
We're
pattern.
holding pattern. We're not doing anything until Greg
agree.
finishes the audit, and then, because there's going to be a reconciliation.
Good.
Is the initiation based on the parcel or the person? Like when you said there's two?
Seal for the house.
I'm
Like Bill's
checking
house.
parcels.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking would make the most sense.
They're using addresses.
Right. Thank you.
Doubling them sometime.
Yep.
But if they're using an address, that's only,
If we were using parcels, then you could have a renter with 3 mobile homes, and you've got 3 houses,
It's a pretty big undertaking, what Greg's doing. It's a big audit.
It's huge.
But the good thing about it, out the other end of this, we'll know. We'll be a heck of a lot smarter than probably anybody else, because I don't know of any other community that's doing anything like this, so. We'll know. Okay?
very exciting.
I mean, but that, I agree, it should be reconciled. I mean, that's something that we probably ought to do annually at least.
Well, once we
for our
get this
books to
right,
jive with theirs.
that'll be easier to do.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's part of the deal, is once we get at the end of this and we figure out what it is, we want to adjust everybody's system, theirs and ours, to fix this.
Good.
You couldn't audit before it because we didn't have Waste Pro data. They refused to give it to us.
But their initial bid was based on what we told them how many people they would be serving, right?
12,069 was the original.
Okay, so growth since then has come up with this new number, right, of COs. So for all we know, they're getting the short end of the stick. For all we know, we don't know that yet.
It's the other way around.
It shouldn't be.
It's the other way
It'll
around.
be the other way around,
They say they are.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
unofficially.
Yeah, unofficially.
But it's for what, the service, $196
Oh,
a year is a good deal.
Yeah, and what few problems we have, it's
It's
good
always
service.
Smith Creek,
Good
pick their
service.
garbage up, too.
Good service. Compared to what we'd have to spend, it's a great service.
Us getting in the garbage business, I don't know, think about
Yeah.
that.
So, questions?
And constitutional officers, if anybody wants to speak. Mr. Buddy?
Jan?
We just need more money.
Greg? Jan, you said you wanted to say something.
And June?
We've got, you know, our county is growing, and we're growing at a fairly rapid rate, and we're going to continue to grow, and that's a really, really good thing, because we need that growth to sustain our everything. But one of the things that we're seeing is especially over the past 6 months, is we're continuing to see where we're needing to buy parcels of land, and if we're going to grow smartly in the future, we need to be able to buy these parcels of land, such as the Hudson property. We're looking at current land on Cager Posey Road right now. We've got East Ivan Road. We need to buy some additional right-of-way on East Ivan, because that whole area, no matter what happens, is going to blow up.
Old Bethel.
There's that old Bethel, all that area is just, you look at it, logic tells you it's going to expand and grow. And the pressure in that area, and also on MLK, the pressure is going to get great there as well. So, and we've got we have some capital. I'm not concerned with covering growth from the standpoint of operation day to day. We can handle that with Avalon. The problems that we're starting to see is we're using quite a bit of our 1-cent sales tax money for covering that growth.
Correcting historic things.
Well, and stuff that we should have done. So and what I'm trying to say is we need to consider some sort of impact fee into the future. I believe. I'm not a big impact fee guy, other than we need it for capital, from a standpoint of we're a growing community now, and really rapidly growing, and we can cover it from an operational standpoint. These houses coming in will cover the operations, all this other stuff. It's the capital infrastructure needed for the growth is that's where we're having some challenges. We're not in a bad position, but it's something we may want to consider in the future, is looking at something along those lines, because
in the future, we're going to have to put a new rec park in. That's going to be
and that's I'm talking about primarily infrastructure roads, but yes, you're right, rec park, etc.
Well, you know, with the growth we have right now, we need to do something to improve the amount of money we go into the parks, because we've got a lot of work we've got to do to keep our park system and our recreation system functioning for these, you know, added residents. Funding a new rec park is going to be big. But you're right. I think, you know, so I'm just letting you know, I'm not up here saying we got to have asking you to start a impact fee study, but I think it's something that we need to really take a serious look at, just from a standpoint of a capital standpoint. I'm not worried about it from the operational standpoint. The growth will handle itself from an operation standpoint with the gross and ad valorem, etc. The problem is your 1-cent sales tax. There's not a definite correlation between, as we grow from a residential standpoint, there's not a big impact there. If there was, then it would be a different story. That would be acting as that. But, you know, naturally, you know, if we continue to 4-lane the road and get more commercial, then all of a sudden our 1-cent sales tax picks up. But from a residential standpoint, we're not seeing the impact to 1-cent sales tax now. So it's just something that we got to look at. Like I say, we've got a lot of work that we need to do in acquiring some more land, more right-of-way in areas. That's the reason we're planning this thing out. I'm not sounding any alarms whatsoever, so please don't think I am. I'm just saying we're playing a balancing act right now, but at some point in time, we're especially for roads, I'm not advocating for anything else other than maybe parks with a new park system and roads, but we got to continue to watch.
I'm not a big impact fee fan either, but Mike, I remember we had a $1,200 impact fee, I think, and then because of the economic downturn, the board reduced it down to 0, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, I said this several months ago when I brought up the Parks Department. I think the Housing Department is more than recovered now. So I don't necessarily have a lot of heartburn with it.
Well, it needs to be focused, and it doesn't need to be the way it was
It
before.
depends on what the number is. Now, come back and say we want $8,000.
No, we don't need anything crazy, but it needs to be focused, not to where it was going to
Not anything wrong with, sorry, but no, it shouldn't be going to corrections. It shouldn't be, you know what I mean? It should be focused into what the true expansion and
Roads are
true,
the biggest
true
thing.
roads is the biggest, is one of our biggest things. And as Chairman says, is, you know, we got to pay for a new park here at some point in time. So, and that bringing new children, new kids and new families, which is great for
Brand
our
new
economy. We're already busting at the seams elsewhere. So, but we're not there yet, but just letting you know that's something we need to have a conversation we need to have.
Yeah, but we have to do it early because we've got to do studies, we've got to do all the steps to get it implemented.
Baby steps, Chuck, baby
It's-
steps.
Yep.
Baby steps.
Recognizing we've got to do it is I guess, the productive first step.
My personal feeling is just leave the millage rate,
Campaign platform next year.
leave the millage rate where it's at. As Chuck has said in the past, and we disagree on this, Chuck says growth doesn't pay for itself. I think if we leave the millage rate at 8, then the new growth will increase revenue. And the best analogy I came up with, I was talking about this earlier, the 1-cent sales tax. Let's say the 1-cent sales tax generated $1 million this year. And we go, all right, next year, to get $1 million, we don't need 1 cent, we need 0.98 cents. So we're going to lower the 1-cent sales tax to keep the revenue the same. That's basically what the rollback rate is. It's saying the rollback rate is the amount needed to have the exact same revenue you had the year before, but we're not going to have the exact same expenses. Everything costs more, health insurance costs more, gas.
Well, we're situated to where we can hold the just as we committed last year when we went through this process with the ad valorem, and our millage rate is, we're proposing this year to hold the millage rate where it's at, not go back to the rollback, but that's what we told you guys we had to do, and that's what we're going to do, because we still have to close the gap. We're closing the gap on the sheriff's department. As I said, we're growing, but I mean, every year we're going to look at that, and one year we may say, okay, now it's time to chop it back a little bit further.
All new revenue is from new growth, basically, right?
At the rollback rate, you get the new construction growth.
But I mean, if we leave it at 8 mills, whatever increase in revenue we have is going to come from growth and maybe some appreciation.
Some value increase.
But for most people,
What's it, our millage right now?
8.
8? Okay.
for most people, if I paid X amount of dollars this year at 8 mills, next year I'm going to pay the same amount of money at 8 mills.
You won't.
Unless my house appreciated or depreciated.
He's already said, what, 5%, 5 to 6% increases.
Yeah,
anticipated.
about 4 to 6%, that's right.
In taxable property value or in what's on the rolls? In other words, if my value of
He
my
said there'll
house
be an
goes up-
increase on the overall roll by 4 to 6%.
But is that growth?
I'm sure growth is a big part of that, yes.
So
Yes.
that's not necessarily mean that my personal property taxes at my house
No.
are going to go up 5%.
No.
Right.
The value of property in the county, which is probably due to growth.
No doubt about it. So anyway,
She may have some comments, I don't know.
Everybody got quiet. Got real quiet when you walked in. Again, as far as the impact fee, I don't want to get into a big discussion about it now, but I'll reach out to the builders. I do work for most all of them. I don't, $1,200 ain't gonna make or break somebody. If it was,
They're gonna pass it
again,
on they're gonna put it in the price of
That's
the
right.
house.
Sure.
Give them the price of the house.
and,
And that's where it should probably be applied, but it comes, as long as we're able to have it to do something with, I'm fine with the discussion of having an impact fee again myself.
And when I said it for the library, I know it didn't pass at the time, but it's a revenue source. I mean, I can't justify it and say that because you built this house, you need to pay this much to help build the library. To me, it's a revenue source. And roads is what really, and to me, as far as the road goes, it's correcting past situations. If somebody had thought about it a long time ago, they would have lined up with Lake Road East Island. They would have remember we had to realign Wakulla Aaron where McDonald's was at, and it was skewed around. It's correcting. Nobody has major north-south corridors like Old Shell Point Road. We need to plan ahead for these things.
and we're doing a good job right now, and we're staying ahead of it, and it's just, I'm just sounding a little bit of thing. We need to talk about it, because we're keeping up with it now, but as we grow, which is a great thing, as we grow, we need to keep ahead of it. We need to be one step ahead of that growth, and especially in our infrastructure. And we're taking care of the sewer side, the wastewater side. We're taking care of that. That side of it is not a problem, which is really good. It's just we don't have a traffic problem right now anywhere really in the county, true traffic problem, but we will. Well,
You don't
a
like
true,
FY19
but no, it's
thing.
not a true traffic problem. We really don't. At the end of the day, when you say traffic problem, we don't have one.
It's not.
Yeah, you may not, instead of getting out, I was able to get out of my driveway in 5 seconds, now it's taking me 10. That's not a traffic problem. So, but we don't have any big traffic problems right now. We will in the future if we don't if we don't start expanding. And that's the reason we're looking at the Cager project. We're going to be realigning the Wooden Lake Road, putting a light there, 4-laning East Ivan, coming back down. Those are all things that we need to go ahead and be planning for, and we're doing, and we're already looking at those. In fact, we've got our engineers looking at East Ivan. So those are things that we need to look at because that whole area is going to be blowing up, and we're looking at an entire area and seeing what has to be done.
Luckily,
You
I didn't
didn't
make,
mean 4-lane in East Ivan.
Mm-hmm. We need to look at 4-laning East Ivan.
luckily I didn't make any campaign promises.
But we better start getting an impact fee then.
I'm not kidding you, because realize the growth, not only just in that area, but in the other areas of the county, it's going to be funneling there. And funneling into that area those are things that we need to look at.
We're talking about.
Not saying that we'll do it, we're just looking at it.
Long-term look at.
Yeah, long-term now is about 5 or 6 years.
It's on us now.
Yeah, yeah.
We-
And we better look at it now versus waiting.
Yes, I agree.
And that's what we're doing, and that's the reason we're looking at the realigning. We're realigning elsewhere in the county, not just in that area, in other areas. So we're aggressive, we have aggressive program. It's just we have more programs right now than we have dollars. So, but we're getting there, and we can get there. It's just we got to be careful at how we do it. So, anyway, that's all I got, and I think that's enough.
It's tough to think about.
But I'm just honest with you and just telling you where we stand. Which we're in a great shape. Don't trust me. This county's in a great position financially. We're in a great position as far as our growth is concerned. We're smart with what we're doing. We're not in trouble. We're not going to be in trouble. We just got to do it smartly.
So, I would really like to get more money into our park system and developing our recreation system. So think about that in the future. If a lot of the public safety equipment is going to be purchased out of the 1 cent sales tax for the sheriff's department out of the ICE funding, maybe we could switch some of that 1 cent sales tax money over.
We got to replace ambulances. That's taking care of that.
One thing to think about though, Chuck, if we did, and I'm saying we do, but if we did have a road impact fee, it may be possible to reallocate some of that money from 1 cent parks. Be something to talk about.
I wouldn't do that. That's because your impact fee dollars, as you know, you got to base it on growth. That's the reason. The other side of that is I hate that formula. I think it's terrible. But so you have to use your 1 cent to offset your what you don't not able to pick up on a growth standpoint. So we need to be careful with that. And you're right, that would make sense, Chairman. But the problem is we've also got to buy $400,000 fire trucks and $350,000 ambulances over the next 8 years. So that's the reason that's allowing us to do that by them buying their vehicles. So I get what you're saying. It's just that's what.
Well, it's just with that reoccurring, that couple of $1 million that they're going to have extra into the future, something to look.
Well, it's a possibility. Yes.
It's a possibility that they could use if they get everything where they need to be, and if they have excess jail bed revenue, that could probably be used for one-time purchases in the rec part, but it couldn't fund.
Not direct, I'm talking about replacing public 1 cent sales tax dollars.
Well, they can't use that excess jail bed revenue for any sort of reoccurring expense.
No, but they can take a lot of pressure off the
1 cent. But in all fairness, the sheriff though is we've just recently master planned the sheriff's facility, and we're part of that master plan now, we're executing phase 1 of that, which is the work camp facility. Phase 2 of that is we're going to be bringing up to you guys probably next year sometime, is they need a new maintenance facility. Their maintenance
Big time.
facility, what they work out of is it rains harder in the maintenance facility than it does outside. So it's bad. If those that have been there, and we've
4 or
got to
5
build it.
sheds
New,
pieced
so
together.
therefore, that we're going to be looking at some of that funding as well to go towards that, because we have to fix that. That's a bad problem. Those guys, they save us a lot of money, and they're working in not in very good work conditions. That's for sure.
I talked to Jared about this. Pete Cochran bent my ear about it. It's been a couple of years.
We're aggressively after, as you know, grants, FWC grants. You'll be seeing one of those here shortly. We're also aggressively going after the RTP grants, which we have one for Woolly Park. But we're also aggressively going after an RTP grant for Azalea Park to turn that into a much more community-friendly park. We have master plans for all of that. We're also at the rec park. We're moving towards putting new lighting up. That'll be going in this year. There'll be more lighting next year. Right now, our park at MedArt Park, even though it is heavily used, other than save the bathrooms, which we're going to be working on those. But what we wanted to do was, first, is everybody complained about the bathrooms, the problem, but also they complained about the kids on the field. We've taken care of the fields now are as good as anybody's fields. The lighting, we're getting there, but that's $100,000 a year. The bathrooms are coming, but we're now to where, we're not a top notch, but we're getting pretty darn close at MedArt. We're a lot closer than what we are. So we used to be. If we can get our bathrooms fixed, we've got a couple logistics on that. We're pretty darn good. We've taken care of the kids as far as the fields they have to play on. That was our number one.
Complaint.
That was the number one. And we've redone all of our fields. We've redone the inside. We've taken care of those. So we systematically have taken care of that. And now the lights are the last thing. So we'll be doing that. But
Are they starting to come out of the cheap mentality that do everything as cheap as humanly possible?
I've taken that out. In fact, we're buying top-notch quality turf equipment that we're finding lasts about 3 times longer than the cheap stuff that we used to buy, and that's opened some eyes as well. It does a lot better job. In fact, we're buying our first top dresser this year, which is going to make another big difference. So we're actually getting into turf management properly.
Do we still get FERDAP grants?
Yes, we just closed out a FERDAP grant, or will be closing out a FERDAP grant for $100,000 at the community center for the, if y'all haven't been over there, we're going to have maybe a little grand opening on that, even though it's already been opened up one time. Jessica will be doing a grand opening for our park over there. If you haven't been by there to look at it, go and look at it. It was $100,000, and it is top notch. And we've already got a lot of people using it, and it's also a part of our master plan. It fits into our master plan that you guys have already done. So everything we do, we master plan it, then we're going after these segments, and that's the reason we're successful on our FERDAPs and all our FWC and our RTP grants, is that we have it master planned out. We know what we're going to do. We have money we can match up to it, and we have it planned. And that's the reason we're now known in this area we're the top as far as getting grants are concerned.
Boat ramps, we talked about the lower bridge ramp on 98.
That is, we're applying for it, and the agenda tonight is to apply for an RTP grant. We tried to pay for that we sent it out to bid for 2 years. We revised it, or twice, excuse me, and we could not get a price that we could afford. In paying for it out of the boating fund and 1 cent sales tax. So new ramp and some new facility. The problem is people are scared of it with the current and the drop off there and all that stuff. So we're going to go through FWC and try to get FWC grant to help offset that, because we're just scared to dive off into that by ourselves.
Literally.
What about the commercial dock at
Commercial dock, we're waiting for the grant agreement from FWC, and as soon as they give us that, we're ready to go. Plans are done and everything.
Good deal.
So we're just waiting for that grant agreement. That's the problem with FWC, is they'll award the grant, say you've got it, but actually getting the contract is not easy, from what I've found.
Where are we on the land swap, federal?
Talked to the federal folks the other day, and they're going to be getting back up with me again. It's in their court.
This is the horse place?
Yeah, the switch off. They did tell me they definitely have to carve the horse arena out. So I told them we would do that.
They were going to operate it at one time.
Now they want to carve it out. I said, not a problem. Let's keep on going. So I'll be meeting with those folks probably the 1st of
Good
May.
luck with that.
Yeah, that's
Federal government, right?
they don't work on the same level I do. So, but that's okay, or we do. Not as fast.
Has to go to Congress.
We work a lot faster than they do.
Literally takes an act of Congress.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, serious. Land swap with federal.
I believe
It does, yes. But you know, all around, we're in good shape. Our county is really in good financial shape. We're good infrastructure shape. We're growing. We need to keep up with that, and we've made some good moves lately with Road and Bridge. Brought them on. Kevin is our new fleet guy. Really done a great job as well with our fleet. We're improving that. We've improved that model as far as dealing with the fire and rescue vehicles. We've saved our taxpayers a tremendous amount of dollars. Debbie DeBose has done a great job of personnel. I think y'all noticed you've gotten some the information in the mail on your employee cost and what it costs the county and what we spend on y'all. We're making great strides there. She's been visiting each shop and talking to the employees about their FRS funding, their problems that they're having, et cetera, and that program's going well. So we're expanding. We're getting smarter in everything that we're doing, and that's how we stay ahead of the curve, is by being smarter.
Everybody knows being smart.
That's right. Even Summer's getting smarter. I'm trying to get Summer. I'm getting Summer out of you hear the chisel over there going ding, 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 ding. I'm prying her out of the 19th century. So,
Did you get her one of those computers yet?
I got her one of them new computers, yeah. And I got her the TRS-80. I got her a TRS-80 so she can get started on
Told
it.
her about that new internet thing yet?
Yeah. Well, no, I hadn't brought that on her yet, so.
Too much.
So anyway, that's all that's going on in the county. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Anybody in the public want to comment? All right, we'll close this meeting.
Adjourn.
We're adjourned.
15 minutes.